I raised you with every drop of my sweat, and now you dare lock me up here, Samuel." Doris's choked scream echoed in the dark basement. The heavy metal door slammed shut, locked tightly from the outside. The only light, seeping through a small crack, was also blocked. The 65-year-old mother trembled, her back against the cold, damp wall. All because of a small argument over a meal, her only son had turned this place into a prison. Dampness rose, and the smell of mold hit her nostrils. Doris remembered the days she used to cradle Samuel in her arms, singing him to sleep with gentle lullabies. Now, that child was coldly imprisoning her like an enemy. Betrayed in the very home she had built, Doris felt like she had lost everything. But she never expected that the darkest moment would be the starting point of a counterattack that would silence both Samuel and Lauren. If you think an old, frail mother will accept her fate, you are mistaken. What I am about to tell you next will shock you even more. My name is Doris, and I am 65 years old. All my life, I had only one asset to be proud of: my son, Samuel. I was widowed at 30. My husband died in an accident, leaving me and Samuel when he was only 5. From then on, all the burdens fell upon my shoulders. I worked 2 jobs at once, cleaning schools during the day and working as a fast food waitress at night, just so Samuel wouldn't lack meals or be disadvantaged compared to his friends. Samuel as a child was strangely well behaved. I still remember once he held my hand, his dark eyes sparkling. "Mom, when I grow up, I'll take care of you my whole life. I will never make you sad." That sentence became the flame that sustained my strength throughout my youth. I spent my youth making up for Samuel. Every night, I would stop by his bed and kiss his forehead. The small house was always filled with laughter. I believed that motherly love and sacrifice would protect my son and me from all storms. The day Samuel was accepted into university, I cried like a child. The neighbors looked at me and laughed. "Doris, you raised your son so well. This boy will surely be your pride." I remember that day. I baked apple pie, Samuel's favorite. He ate 3 big slices and then turned to me and said, "Mom, in the future, I'll buy you a big house and you won't have to do anything." While Samuel was studying away, I worked and saved every penny to send him. Every time he came home, I always prepared the most lavish meal just to see him eat well. When Samuel got married to Lauren, I cried tears of joy. I thought, he has someone to take care of him, and I can worry less. Lauren smiled and spoke softly and respectfully, making me believe my son had chosen well. During those years, I felt I had finally reached peace. The house was not only filled with Samuel's laughter, but also with the gentle voice of a woman. I thought that all my sacrifices in this life had been rewarded. But that belief didn't last. Samuel gradually changed after securing a stable job. He became busy, irritable, and often ignored me. Lauren, though still smiling, often looked at me with eyes as cold as ice. One day, Samuel said, "Mom, it's a waste for this house to be under your name. I need to mortgage it to get a loan to start my company. Transfer it to my name, you can still live here." I was stunned into silence. This house was the fruit of my entire life's hard work. I shook my head, and that refusal became the spark. Since then, a heavy atmosphere had enveloped us. Samuel often yelled, while Lauren sweetly chimed in, "Mother, Samuel only wants what's best for our family's future. Please don't be so stubborn." But I saw the dishonesty in every word. I once thought this woman was my son's spiritual anchor. But increasingly, I realized Lauren was not just a daughter-in-law, but a silent accomplice. Small disputes during meals, issues with utilities, even the old wooden chair I always sat on became excuses for Samuel to erupt in anger. And then, one fateful night, he did something I never dared to imagine. He locked his own mother in the basement. That afternoon, as I finished clearing the dinner table, Samuel abruptly placed a thick stack of papers in front of me. His voice was cold, as if speaking to a stranger. "Mother, just sign here. It'll be more convenient to get a loan if this house is in my name. I promise to take good care of you. You won't lose anything." I looked at the papers, clearly seeing the bold print. Transfer of property ownership. My hands trembled. My heart pounded. So many years of sweat, so many sleepless nights accumulating. It all went into this house. And now, with a single signature, he wanted me to give it all away. "Samuel, I've already told you. Jamal, this is my house. If you're so capable, go get your own loan. Why do you need to take even the roof that shelters your mother?" He slammed the table, making the dishes rattle. Lauren quickly placed her hand on her husband's shoulder, her voice soft, but each word like a knife cut. "Mother, Samuel is doing this for the family's future. Once the company grows, you'll live in comfort. Why do you cling so tightly to this old house?" I turned to look at Lauren. Her eyes no longer held the gentle gaze from when she first entered our home, but were filled with calculation. I understood. This was not just Samuel's idea. Lauren was behind it, pushing him and whispering suggestions. I pursed my lips tightly. "I don't need comfort. I only need this house. It's where your father once lived. It's where I grew up. I will never sign." Samuel gritted his teeth. "Don't be stubborn, Mother. I am your son." "Don't you trust me?" I gave a sad smile. "It's not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust your ambition. It's swallowing your heart, Samuel." The room fell into tense silence. I saw in my son's eyes no trace of the little boy who once promised, "I'll take care of Mother my whole life," but a stranger with a fierce, impulsive gaze. Lauren let out a soft sigh, feigning tears. "If you don't love us, fine. But why do you think we're trying to deceive you?" I bit my lip, offering no reply. I knew that the more I gave in, the more they would push. I stood up, cleared away the dishes, and didn't look back. Samuel shouted behind me, "Mother will regret this!" Those words echoed in my head all night. I didn't regret refusing. I was only heartbroken to realize that the son I had raised my entire life was no longer himself. The next day, after Samuel left for work, Lauren brought a tray of hot tea to my room. She smiled, her voice soft and gentle, like silk. "Mother, Samuel was upset yesterday. He was just worried about the company. Please don't be angry." I remained silent, taking the teacup from Lauren's hand. The warmth spread to my fingertips, but a chill settled in my heart. Lauren sat beside me, tilting her head slightly, like a dutiful daughter-in-law. "Don't you think, Mother, if Samuel succeeds, you'll also be proud? Who wouldn't want to see their son stand tall and be respected by everyone?" She paused, then took my hand. "Mother, we don't mean to take anything away from you. It's just an old house compared to a glorious future. Is it really worth holding on to so tightly?" I looked into Lauren's eyes. Her smile was like a layer of sweet honey, but contempt flickered in her eyes. I slowly placed the teacup on the table, my voice hoarse. "Lauren, what you say sounds good, but to me, this house is not just an old house. It holds all my memories, my blood and sweat." "Can you understand that?" Lauren chuckled softly, a smile that was hard to discern as friendly or sarcastic. "Memories don't feed anyone, Mother. People look at the present. No one cares about the past. I just want you to be happy. Think about it. Among your friends, do any of them have a capable son like Samuel with such a career?" I could see clearly that she was playing on my pride, turning my sacrifices into a burden. As if by not signing, I would be standing in his way. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Lauren, I don't need my friends' admiration. I just need a family that respects each other. But I see that in this house, the word respect disappeared long ago." Lauren stopped smiling, a fleeting coldness in her eyes. She let go of my hand, stood up, her voice softening but becoming sharper. "If that's how you feel, it's a pity. I just hope you don't disappoint Samuel. He's a man, and his pride is immense. If you insist on being stubborn, I fear things might escalate." That statement was like a veiled warning. I sat in silence, watching Lauren's retreating back disappear beyond the door. In that moment, I understood clearly. Samuel was no longer alone in this fight. Lauren wasn't just the wife standing behind him. She was his ally, cunning and malicious, using sweetness to isolate me. I shivered. A strong premonition surged within me. The real storm had only just begun. After the talk with Lauren, things at home gradually changed. Not loud, obvious changes, but quiet, insidious ones, like invisible threads wrapping around me. First, it was about money. Before, I had a small savings account, set aside for my old age. One day, I went to the bank to withdraw some money, and the teller said the account had been transferred to joint ownership with Samuel. I was stunned into silence. The son I had taught to respect privacy was now brazenly touching every penny I had saved. When I asked, Samuel curtly replied, "You're getting old, Mom. Keeping money in the bank is dangerous. I'll manage it for you. It's safer." I got angry. Safer, or just more convenient for you to take whenever you want? He turned away, not answering. His cold gaze sent shivers down my spine. Then came the mail. I often didn't receive utility bills, nor letters from old friends. Once, by chance, I saw Lauren stuffing a stack of letters into a drawer in her private room. She gave a forced smile. "Oh, I was going to give these to you later." The postal worker must have made a mistake. But I knew perfectly well there was no mistake. It didn't stop there. Samuel started locking my room whenever I went out. Many times after returning from shopping, I had to bang on the door and call loudly before he would saunter out, lying, "Mom often forgets to lock up. I was just helping you." I felt like I was no longer the owner of my own home, but a person under house arrest. Every night I sat by the small window, hearing the lock click in the next room, my heart filled with bitterness. I remembered Lauren's words from the other day. "If you continue to be stubborn, I'm afraid things will escalate." Indeed, they were no longer hiding their intentions. They wanted me to understand. Little by little, I was being pushed to the fringes. One evening, when I returned from church, I found my familiar room had a new lock. Samuel stood there nonchalantly. "You don't need that much space. Lauren and I need a larger room for our work. Move to the small room in the basement. It's quiet down there, more suitable for your age." I stared at him, tears welling up. "Samuel, that's my room. It's where I keep so many memories. How could you?" He shrugged, turning away coldly. Lauren stood behind him, silent, offering only a slight smile. In that moment, I felt I was being stripped away. Not just my money, not just my room, but my dignity, my freedom, and the sacred mother-son bond I once believed was indissoluble. I knew that if I didn't resist soon, they would consume the rest of my life. That night, rain poured down, thunder and lightning splitting the sky. I had just finished clearing the dishes when Samuel walked into the kitchen. His face was tense, his eyes bloodshot, as if he had been drinking. "Mom, I'll say this one last time. Sign it. If not, don't blame me for doing something you won't expect." I stood frozen, my hands still covered in soapy water. I shook my head. "You can take everything else but this house. I won't give it up." In that moment, I saw the darkness deepen in Samuel's eyes. He gripped my hand tightly and dragged me down the stairs to the basement. I struggled and screamed, "Samuel! What are you doing? Let go of your mother!" But he didn't listen. The basement door creaked open, releasing a blast of damp, cold air. He shoved hard, and I stumbled down the old wooden steps with a creak. Before I could get up, the door slammed shut. Bang! The sound of a lock turning echoed. Darkness swallowed me whole. I pounded on the door relentlessly, my knocks mingling with the drumming rain outside. "Samuel, please, son, don't do this!" But outside, only silence answered. The basement was freezing, the smell of mildew stinging my nostrils. I huddled in a corner, my back against the cold, wet wall, my heart pounding like a drum. Every scurry of a mouse, every drip of water from a rusty pipe made me jump. On the first day, I thought he just wanted to scare me. But as the darkness stretched on, as my stomach gnawed with hunger and my throat burned with thirst, I realized my son had truly abandoned me. I remembered when he was little how he would hug me when I came home late from work, nuzzling his head against my shoulder. "Mom, why were you gone so long? I missed you so much." That memory now felt like a knife twisting deeper. On the second night, I grew weaker, leaning my back against an old wooden crate. I whispered to myself in the darkness, "Samuel, do you remember your promise? You said you'd take care of me forever." No answer came. Only the wind howled through the cracks in the door, like a cruel mockery. By the third day, I was nearly gone. My arms were numb, my vision blurred in the thick darkness. I didn't even have the strength to pound on the door anymore. Only my weak breaths and hot tears rolling down remained. But it was then, deep within me, that another feeling ignited. No longer fear, but rage. If I survived this, I would not be buried like this. I would show Samuel that the mother he thought was weak could rise up and fight back. In the darkness of the basement, I clenched my fists, vowing to myself, I will not break. Even if I have to crawl out of here, I will expose the truth. On the fourth day in the basement, my body was almost depleted. My vision was failing, my head spun, my legs were numb. I thought I would die in the darkness, without ever seeing the sunlight again. But fate intervened with a surprise. Mrs. Martha, my next-door neighbor, paid a visit. She called out loudly in the yard, and when I didn't answer as usual, she grew suspicious. As she came closer, she heard a faint knocking sound from the basement. "Doris, is that you down there?" I didn't have the strength to reply, only managed to tap my hand weakly against the rotten wooden door. Mrs. Martha, panicked, called for a few men from the neighborhood. Within minutes, the door was pried open. Light flooded in, blinding and painful to my eyes. I was helped out, trembling. Though my body was weak, my heart burned with fire. Seeing the neighbors gather, hearing their whispers, did his son lock her in there? I felt both ashamed and pained, but mixed in was a flicker of hope. I was no longer alone. Martha squeezed my hand. "Doris, I can't stay silent anymore. This must be said. If I keep it a secret, they will do even worse." I nodded, my lips moving, but no sound coming out. In that moment, I understood clearly. This time, I would not just be the suffering mother. I would be the one to stand up. That weekend, my family held a small party to celebrate the birthday of my granddaughter, the daughter of my younger brother Samuel. The whole family gathered, the dinner table filled with laughter and conversation. Martha helped me to the table. My body was still weak, but my heart was burning with a decision. The truth must be revealed right in front of everyone. As Samuel and Lauren walked in, the atmosphere immediately changed. I saw a fleeting look of surprise on my son's face when he saw me. He had expected me to remain silent, to continue suffering. Lauren quickly put on a fake smile and came over, putting her arm around me. "Mom, why aren't you resting at home? It's crowded here. It must be tiring." I pushed her hand away, my voice hoarse but firm. "I have to be here, to tell everyone the truth." The entire table fell silent. All eyes turned to me. I stood up, leaning on my cane, my whole body trembling but my will unwavering. For the past 4 days, my own son, Samuel, locked me in the basement. No food, no water, no light. If not for Martha and the neighbors, I would be dead by now. The room erupted in murmurs, whispers. Good heavens! Is that true? How could he do that to his mother? Samuel turned pale and quickly retorted in a low voice, "What nonsense is Mom talking about? Don't listen to her." "She's confused," Lauren chimed in, her voice sweet but trembling. "That's right. Mom has been locking herself in her room these past few days, refusing to come out. She must be tired and thinking crazy things." I looked directly into Samuel's eyes, tears welling up, but a fire burning within them. "Do you dare to swear in front of everyone? Do you dare to swear that you didn't lock the door, confiscate my money, and hide my mail?" Silence fell over the room. Samuel lowered his head, his hands clenched so tightly that his veins bulged. The relatives murmured. Their faces, which had once admired him, now turned to doubt and shock. A cousin of mine stood up abruptly. "Samuel, I used to respect you, but if you really did that, then you are no longer worthy of being called human." That voice was like a blade, cutting through the facade Samuel had tried to maintain. Lauren turned pale, trying to grasp her husband's hand, but was pushed away. In that moment I knew the wall of silence had crumbled. The whole family, the entire clan, had heard the truth, and from now on, Samuel could no longer hide it. The air in the party room was thick, everyone silently looking at me, then at Samuel, then at Lauren. I knew this was my only chance to end the days of oppression, to show the entire family the true face of my son and the woman beside him. I took a deep breath, my voice trembling but clear. "If you still don't believe me, I have proof. The lock on my room, it was replaced a few days ago. Martha and some neighbors saw them break down the door and rescue me from the basement with their own eyes." Martha stood up, nodding decisively. "I was the one who opened the door and rescued Doris. She was exhausted, almost unconscious. If it weren't for us, I fear she wouldn't be sitting here today." The entire room erupted in gasps of shock, mingled with outrage. An elderly man, my cousin, slammed his fist on the table. "Samuel, are you insane? You locked your own mother in the basement? What a disgrace!" Samuel retorted, his voice cracking. "No! Mother is lying. She's deliberately slandering me." But I cut him off with a crumpled envelope I managed to retrieve from Lauren's drawer. "This is a letter from my old friend, sent to me 2 months ago, but you hid it. I found it in Lauren's room." Lauren, her face pale, quickly countered. "I was just holding it for you, planning to give it back to Mother." "Give it back? After 2 months?" I interrupted, my voice sharp for the first time. "You not only wanted to take this house, but you also wanted to isolate me, cut off all my contacts, and turn me into a prisoner in my own home." The murmuring turned into direct accusations. "This is unacceptable. Locking up your own mother to steal her house, have you no conscience? Both of them are shameful." Lauren bowed her head, tears falling, but no one was moved. Samuel's face turned crimson, but his protests only further enraged the family. A sister-in-law approached and took my hand. "Doris, don't worry. We won't let you be wronged anymore. From now on, you have us." My eyes welled up. For so long, I had thought I was alone. But now, in front of everyone, the truth had been revealed. Samuel and Lauren no longer had a place in the family's hearts. I held my head high, looking directly at the 2 people who had once terrified me. "You can take my money, you can imprison my body, but you can never take my dignity. And today, in front of everyone, your true faces have been exposed." The room exploded with murmurs, but this time it wasn't to gossip about me. It was to condemn Samuel and Lauren themselves. I knew my first counterattack had struck them right in the heart. After the family gathering, I knew the disapproval of my relatives alone wouldn't be enough. Samuel and Lauren's ambition was too great. They wouldn't stop. I needed a solid move, a powerful counter-offensive to make them understand. I was no longer a weak prey. With Martha's help, I found a local law office. Lawyer Carter, a middle-aged man with a stern gaze, listened to me for over 2 hours. I told him everything that had happened. being locked in the basement, being forced to sign papers, having my savings taken away. He took notes and then said sternly, "Mrs. Doris, you have every legal right to protect yourself. This house is in your name. No one can force you to transfer it. If necessary, we will request an asset freeze to ensure the house is not transferred improperly." Hearing those words, I saw a glimmer of light in the darkness of despair. Just 1 week later, the official freeze order was issued. When Samuel went to the bank to apply for a loan, he was flatly refused. He angrily slammed the counter while Lauren called me, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Mom, why would you do this? Don't you care about us? Samuel's entire career is on the brink." I replied calmly, "If your careers are built on my sweat and tears, then they are not worth existing." For the first time, I heard my voice sound so firm. Not long after the lockdown order was issued, Samuel began to change tactics. He no longer publicly yelled or forced me. Instead, he chose a quieter but more insidious method, fabricating stories that I had lost my memory and was no longer lucid. One afternoon, I overheard him talking on the phone in the living room. "Yes, my mother has been very forgetful lately. Sometimes she tells me to lock her in the basement. Other times she insists someone is stealing her mail. It's all delusion. I'm afraid she's not lucid enough to manage her own assets anymore." I stood frozen behind the door. My heart pounded, my hands trembled. He was slandering his own mother, making me appear incompetent to legitimize his scheme of appropriation. A few days later, a group of psychiatric doctors invited by Samuel knocked on the door. He smiled fawningly. "Mom, I'm worried about your health, so I asked the doctor to check your memory. It's just a formality." I looked him straight in the eye, my voice dripping with malice. "You want to declare me mentally incompetent to take the house, don't you, Samuel?" The smile on his lips stiffened for a moment, but he immediately turned to the doctors. "See? She's delusional again." "My mother constantly thinks I want to harm her." I was choked with anger. But fortunately, Lawyer Carter had anticipated this situation. He quickly filed a motion with the court requesting an independent examination, bypassing the doctors Samuel had arranged. On the day of the examination, I was taken to a large hospital. I answered every question clearly, remembering every detail from childhood to the present. The result? Completely lucid, no signs of memory loss. That report was like a slap in Samuel's face. His fabricated story plan had failed miserably, but I knew he wouldn't stop. Samuel was accustomed to living by his ambitions, and when his ambitions were thwarted, he would struggle even more fiercely. I sat alone in the house, clutching the medical examination report, vowing silently, "You can lie, you can fabricate stories, but I will expose it all to the light of justice." The court hearing took place on a sweltering morning. I sat beside Lawyer Carter, my hand tightly gripping the stack of documents, the evidence we had painstakingly gathered. Samuel and Lauren entered, both dressed impeccably, trying to maintain a calm demeanor, but I could clearly see the restlessness flickering in their eyes. Samuel began, his voice sweet, but the script was all too familiar. "Your Honor, my mother is elderly and no longer lucid. She frequently has delusions that my wife and I want to harm her. I merely wish to manage her assets to ensure her safety." Lauren, sitting beside him, her eyes welling up with tears, added, "Doris often forgets the date and mistakes her relatives. We just want to protect her." The room buzzed with murmurs. I remained silent, waiting for Lawyer Carter to stand. He withdrew from his briefcase the results of the medical examination confirmed by a reputable hospital. "Your Honor, my client is of sound mind, showing no signs of memory loss or delusion." "This is objective, irrefutable evidence." The entire courtroom gasped. Samuel's face paled, but Carter wasn't finished. He continued to present bank statements proving Samuel had unilaterally converted my savings account to joint ownership without consent. "This is an act of personal property infringement, with signs of abuse of trust," Carter declared forcefully. I looked at Samuel and saw him clench his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead. Lauren, meanwhile, hung her head, her hands trembling. Not stopping there, Carter called Martha, a neighbor, as a witness. She stood before the court, meticulously recounting how she and others broke down the basement door and pulled me out in a state of exhaustion. She affirmed, "If left any longer, Doris could have lost her life." The air in the room felt electric. All of Samuel and Lauren's defenses suddenly seemed ridiculous. The judge frowned, gaveling for order. In that moment, I felt the tide turn. From the underdog, justice was now on my side. As for Samuel and Lauren, two people who had once been arrogant and confident, they were now cornered, with nowhere left to hide. I sighed, but it wasn't a sigh of exhaustion, rather one of relief. This legal battle had seen my decisive counterattack. After the first court session concluded, my story spread beyond the family circle. Martha, outraged, recounted the events to a few friends at church. Within days, the whole neighborhood was buzzing with the news. Son locks elderly mother in the basement to steal the house. Not long after, a reporter from the local newspaper found her way to my door. The young woman sat before me, her voice recorder already on. "Ms. Doris, is it true your son locked you in the basement for days?" I looked directly into the lens, my voice hoarse but clear. "Yes, that is the truth. I thought I would die in the darkness." But what hurt me most wasn't the cold, nor the hunger and thirst, but the betrayal by the very child I raised. The next day's article hit the stands with a shocking headline: 65-year-old mother locked in basement by son, the fight for justice begins. Social media exploded. Hundreds of furious comments flooded in. "I can't believe someone could be so ungrateful. If I were her, I'd sue them to the ends of the earth. Lauren isn't much better, a truly wicked woman." Within days, images of Samuel and Lauren were everywhere on the forums. People discussed, shared, and expressed their outrage. The house that was once Samuel's pride and joy had become a focal point of community condemnation. As the article and clips of my interview spread, Lauren began to lose sleep. She was accustomed to the image of the dutiful, elegant wife, always seen at lavish parties, schmoozing with Samuel's colleagues. But now, wherever she went, she encountered scrutinizing glances and hushed whispers. At a women's club luncheon, Lauren had barely entered when she heard whispers behind her. "There she is, the daughter-in-law from the mother-in-law locking incident." Heard she was the mastermind. Lauren forced a smile and tried to approach a few acquaintances to strike up a conversation, but they used being busy as an excuse and quietly left. A close friend from before bluntly texted, "Lauren, I'm sorry, but I can't stand by you anymore. People will think I'm an accomplice." Lauren's phone rang incessantly, not with calls of concern, but with messages of condemnation, vicious comments from netizens. "You wicked woman, do you even deserve to be a mother?" It's best to get a divorce, rather than live with someone like Samuel. For long nights, Lauren tossed and turned, tears soaking her pillow. She was no longer the confident, radiant woman she once was, but someone living in fear, constantly wary of every glance. One evening, she pleaded with Samuel. "Honey, we can't go on like this. My friends have all abandoned me. My work has also been affected. If this continues, neither of us will have anything left." Samuel snapped. "Do you think I don't know? But if we back down now, all our efforts will be in vain." Lauren looked at her husband, her eyes vacant. She began to realize the man she had bet her life on was no longer her support, but a stone dragging them both into the abyss. If Lauren was panicking about her personal reputation crumbling, Samuel was facing immense pressure from society. The company where he worked, which prided itself on its family values, now found itself at the center of criticism because their key employee appeared in the news with the headline, "Young Businessman Locks Elderly Mother in Basement." Major clients began withdrawing their contracts one by one, A close colleague bluntly threw back a report and said coldly, "I cannot work with someone so inhumane." "Samuel, you're on your own." Even when walking down the street, he was pointed at by strangers, some even shouting at him, "You unfilial bastard!" In the following nights, Samuel became irritable, smashing things in the house. Lauren tried to intervene, but only received shouts, and even the first slap in their marriage. Public outrage didn't stop at mere words. A group of young men from the neighborhood even plastered posters in front of his house. "This is where the heartless man imprisoned his elderly mother." The image went viral, further fueling the community's anger. Samuel turned to alcohol to temporarily forget, but the more he drank, the more he lost control. One evening, he slumped over his desk, muttering, "It's all her fault. If she had just signed the papers, none of this would have happened." But deep within his bloodshot eyes, fear was evident. He knew he was cornered, his career ruined, his reputation shattered, his friends estranged. And it all stemmed from the woman he had once sworn to care for his entire life, his mother. Public opinion, like a raging storm, had swept away the mask of morality Samuel had worn for so long. He had no way back. And I understood. This backlash had truly broken him. The date of the official trial arrived. The courtroom was packed with people, from reporters and neighbors to relatives. Everyone was waiting to see the outcome of this shocking family feud. I sat in the plaintiff's seat, my hand tightly gripping a small, worn-out Bible, a memento from my husband. Across from me, Samuel and Lauren were impeccably dressed in suits, trying to maintain a composed demeanor, but I could clearly see Samuel's fingers clenched so tightly they were pale. The judge struck his gavel, his voice echoing, "The court is now in session. Case: Doris sues her son Samuel and daughter-in-law Lauren for unlawful detention and property misappropriation." My lawyer Carter began with a detailed account, from Samuel forcing me to sign papers and controlling my finances to the imprisonment in the basement. He presented each piece of evidence and witness clearly, leaving the entire courtroom breathless. The opposing lawyer for Samuel stood up, his voice smooth. "My client merely wanted to ensure the safety of his elderly mother. Mrs. Doris is often paranoid and even fabricated stories. The detention was merely a misunderstanding." I raised my head, looking directly at Samuel. My heart ached, but my eyes had stopped shedding tears. I knew it was time for the truth to be told. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Doris, do you have anything you wish to say to the court?" I stood up, my voice trembling but each word ringing clearly. "I do not want my son to go to jail. I only want justice to be served. I spent my whole life raising him, but what I received in return was 4 days in the darkness of the basement, without water, without food. I am still alive to tell this story. But if I remain silent, how many other mothers will suffer the same fate tomorrow?" Silence filled the room. I heard a soft sob from somewhere in the courtroom. The trial had just begun, but I knew the real storm was coming. The judge struck his gavel, signaling lawyer Carter to call the first witness. The courtroom door opened, and who should walk in but Martha, the neighbor who rescued me from the basement. Martha was slender, but her eyes were resolute. She stood before the witness stand, her voice clear and strong. I was the one who directly heard the faint cries from the basement. I, along with a few men, forced the door open to pull Doris out. She was almost completely exhausted at the time, unable to stand steadily. "If we hadn't arrived in time, I fear she would not be sitting here today." A murmur went through the courtroom. Samuel lowered his head, while Lauren clutched her sleeve, her face pale. Not stopping there, Carter called another witness, the bank manager. He explained clearly, "Mrs. Doris's personal savings account was changed to joint ownership. This was done by Samuel without Mrs. Doris's consent. This is an illegal act." Whispers erupted again. I looked at Samuel. His face began to crumble. The opposing lawyer stood up abruptly, attempting to refute. My client only did this to manage his mother's money. There was no intention to misappropriate. But Carter had prepared his next blow. He called an old friend of Samuel's, with whom he had previously done business. The man testified in court. Samuel once bragged to me that as soon as he got the house in his mother's name, he would have capital for his ventures. I advised him against it, but he wouldn't listen. The entire room seemed to explode. This was no longer a one-sided story. It was living proof, confirming Samuel's intent to misappropriate. The judge frowned, his voice heavy. "Samuel, do you have anything to deny these statements?" Samuel stood up, his lips trembling, but he could not utter a word. Lauren gently tugged her husband's arm, her eyes filled with despair. I sat there, my heart aching. Watching my son bow his head before the defendant's dock, I was overcome with pain. But more than anything, I felt a sense of relief. The truth had been spoken, bit by bit, with nothing left hidden. In that moment, the entire courtroom fell silent. The mother, who had been trapped in darkness, was now illuminated by the light of justice, and all eyes were fixed on Samuel, the one who had thought he could bury the truth forever. After all witnesses had finished their testimonies, the courtroom was enveloped in a tense silence. I could clearly hear my own heartbeat, each beat threatening to shatter my chest. The judge sat high on the bench, his face solemn, turning the pages of the case file. Samuel kept his head down, his hands clasped together, trembling uncontrollably. Lauren sat close beside him, her eyes dry, her lips pursed. No more fabricated tears could salvage the situation. The judge cleared his throat, each word echoing through the large room. After reviewing all the evidence, witness testimonies, and the medical forensic report, the court confirms that the defendant Samuel illegally detained his mother, Doris, and intended to seize her assets. Lauren, as an accomplice, consented to and concealed this act. A murmur erupted. Some neighbors covered their faces, shaking their heads in dismay. I sat motionless, listening to every word. For these actions, the court decrees the revocation of all financial co-ownership rights related to Mrs. Doris's savings account, a complete injunction against the transfer of the disputed house. Samuel is sentenced to 3 years of probation with community service for illegal detention and abuse of trust. Lauren will receive an administrative penalty and is ordered to vacate this residence immediately. The gavel struck the desk with a resounding thud. The room exploded in cheers, while I sat in silence, tears streaming down my face. Not from pain anymore, but from an indescribable sense of relief. After so many dark days and nights, justice had finally prevailed for me. Samuel looked up, his eyes watering, his lips trembling. "Mother, do you really want me to end up like this?" I looked straight at him, my voice choked but firm. "It's not that I want this. It's that you chose it yourself. You turned yourself into an unfilial son. Today's justice simply did what needed to be done." Lauren bowed her head, her shoulders shaking. No one in the room wanted to comfort her anymore. Reporters simultaneously raised their cameras, flashes illuminating the room in rapid succession. I knew my story wouldn't end with just this trial. It would resonate far and wide, letting everyone understand. Truth, in the end, would find its light. I clutched the Bible in my hand, whispering to my late husband, "I did it. Justice protected me and our son, but not in the way I had hoped." In that moment, I clearly felt it. A new door in my life had opened. Just a few days after the trial, the first decision impacting Samuel came from his company. The board of directors convened an emergency meeting. I heard that when he entered the conference room, all his colleagues looked at him with cold eyes. The director announced bluntly, "Samuel, this company is built on the values of honesty and family. Your actions have severely damaged our reputation. Effective today, your contract is terminated." A termination letter was placed directly in front of him. Samuel wanted to argue, to explain, But all his words were meaningless. The news about the son who imprisoned his mother spread like wildfire, and clients, big and small, simultaneously withdrew their business. He had nowhere left to stand. As he left the company, Samuel heard whispers behind him. He got what he deserved. Someone like him, how could he ever show his face in the business world again? He walked away, his shoulders slumped, his hands clenched so tightly they drew blood. All the past glory, being honored as a promising young entrepreneur, was now just a memory, erased by 2 words: unfilial. After Samuel was fired from the company, his days in that house turned into hell. With no stable income, bills piled up. Accustomed to a life of luxury, the sudden shift to struggling made Lauren begin to show her dissatisfaction. One evening, when Samuel returned home reeking of alcohol, Lauren threw a stack of utility bills at her husband's face. "Look at this." "This is the price for your madness. I've never been so humiliated in my life. Friends cut ties and my work is also affected. It's all because of you," Samuel roared, slamming his fist on the table. "Don't put it all on me. If you hadn't instigated, hadn't plotted, I wouldn't have ended up like this." Those words were like a knife severing the last thread of their connection. Lauren fell silent for a moment, then let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, so now you blame me. Samuel, I sacrificed my youth to stand by your side. And what did I get in return? A prison sentence, a ruined reputation, a failed husband." In the following days, arguments erupted continuously. Samuel drowned himself in alcohol, while Lauren coolly packed her belongings. One morning, when Samuel woke up, the room was bare except for his old suitcase. Lauren was gone. On the table, she had left a short note. "I can no longer live in this darkness. Between you and me, there is nothing left but hatred. Goodbye." The house, once filled with laughter, became empty and cold. Samuel collapsed onto a chair, burying his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. But these were not tears of regret for his mother, whom he had imprisoned in the basement, but sobs of despair as he realized everything was lost: his career, his honor, and even his family. In the dim light filtering through the window, Samuel looked like a complete failure, a once arrogant figure, now just a living corpse. After Lauren left, the house, which used to be lit up every evening, became a cold shell. Samuel wandered through it like a ghost. He had no job, no friends, no wife by his side. Only stacks of debt notices and compensation claims lay on the table. Every time he went outside, he had to endure contemptuous stares. Some people pointed directly at him. "Look, it's the unfilial son who locked his mother in the basement." Children would chase him, throwing stones and shouting, "Monster! Monster!" Samuel, a man who was once proud and valued his reputation, had become the laughingstock of the entire neighborhood. He moved many times, but no matter where he went, his sordid past followed him like a shadow. The long days of unemployment plunged him into drinking. Cheap bars became his new home, where he drank until he collapsed on the floor. Old friends dared not approach him. They feared being implicated by such a notorious figure. Business relationships also slammed their doors shut. No one trusted him anymore. One night, neighbors heard him wailing drunk. "It's all her fault. If she had signed the papers, I wouldn't have lost everything." But when the drunkenness subsided, he would sit there blankly, looking at an old photo of himself and his mother, his eyes cloudy. Deep down he knew he had destroyed everything with his own hands. That winter, Samuel had to sell almost all his belongings to pay off his debts. The once grand house was now empty, with only a few old items remaining. He lived precariously, often going hungry, sometimes scavenging for leftovers at the market. The man who was once a promising businessman was now no different from a vagrant. Society abandoned him. His family turned their backs on him. His wife left him. And in his heart, only solitude and long, agonizing nights remained. Samuel, the man who once dared to lock his elderly mother in the basement for his ambition, was finally brought to the depths of misery by that very ambition. After days steeped in alcohol and the world's contempt, Samuel began to clearly feel a terrifying emptiness. When the haze of drunkenness faded, when the mocking laughter outside quieted, he was left with only himself and the image of his mother, confined in darkness. For many nights, Samuel sat before the empty wooden table, his hand trembling as he held a pen. He began to write. "Mother, I know I was wrong. I am sorry for what I have done. I was too greedy, too blind. I don't deserve to be your son, but I still hope you will give me a chance." The paper became blurred by the tears falling onto it. Samuel folded it, placed it in an envelope, and sent it to Doris's address. But days turned into weeks, and there was no reply. Not a single call, not a single letter in return. Samuel wrote again. "Mother, I just need you to say a word. Scolding me is fine. I just can't bear this silence anymore." This time, it was the same. Silence. Doris no longer had the energy to argue, nor the strength to resent. She chose the only way to protect her heart: non-response. That silence was like another sentence, heavier than any court verdict. It tormented Samuel day and night, as if an invisible hand was squeezing his chest. He realized one could lose everything in this life: job, friends, wife, children. But losing his mother's forgiveness was the cruelest sentence of all. In the days that followed, Samuel fell into a terrifying spiral of nightmares. Every night, he dreamed of the dark basement, where his mother sat, huddled in a corner, her eyes tearful, looking at him with a gaze filled with both pain and reproach. In his dream, Doris softly called out, "Samuel, why did you do this to me?" He rushed towards her, wanting to shout, "Mother, I'm sorry!" But the metal door slammed shut, locking him out. The metallic click of the bolt turning echoed, so haunting that he would jolt awake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat. These nightmares repeated themselves day after day, leaving Samuel with no will to live. By day he wandered aimlessly. By night he screamed in his dreams. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollowed with dark circles, his hair disheveled. Nothing remained of the once successful businessman. In despair, Samuel tried many times to contact Doris again. He called, but only the cold, robotic voice of the answering machine responded. He wrote letters by hand, but they were all returned, never opened. Once, he took the risk of going to her house, standing outside the gate. The old house was still lit, warm, filled with the sounds of laughter from visiting neighbors. Trembling, he pressed the doorbell. The door opened, but it wasn't Doris. It was Martha. Her gaze was cold. "Samuel, Mrs. Doris does not wish to see you. Please leave." He pleaded, his voice cracking. "Just 1 minute. Let me talk to Mother." Martha shook her head and slammed the door shut. Samuel stood frozen outside the gate, the night wind whistling through his back, leaving only an immense emptiness in his heart. He realized the door was closed, not just the gate to his home, but also the door to his mother's heart. And the most painful thing was, this time, it would never open again. Samuel turned away, his steps unsteady, a lost figure in the darkness. Heavy raindrops fell, mingling with his tears, pulling him deeper into despair. Day by day, Samuel was further eroded by his own nightmares and his mother's silence. He no longer looked for new jobs, nor did he have the courage to go outside. The dark room became his own basement, a prison he had locked himself into. Every night, Samuel sat on his old chair, clutching a bottle of wine, mumbling his mother's name. As the alcohol took hold, he burst into tears, his voice breaking. "Mother, forgive me. I was wrong. I was truly wrong." But no one answered. Only the cold 4 walls echoed his choked sobs. Once, in a fitful dream, he found himself standing before the basement door again. Inside, Doris trembled and called for her son. Samuel dropped to his knees, pounding on the door, shouting until his throat was raw. "Mother, open the door! I don't want to lose you!" But as always, the bolt slid shut with a dry click, the door remaining tightly closed. Doris looked at him through the crack, her eyes filled with tears, then slowly faded into the darkness. Samuel jolted awake, drenched in sweat. He rushed to the mirror. His face was gaunt, his beard unkempt, his eyes bloodshot. He barely recognized himself. The successful man he once was had died, leaving only a failure, lonely and broken. Day after day, Samuel lived in an internal hell. No one forced him to bear any further punishment, but the greatest sentence was the absolute severance from his mother. No forgiveness, no compassionate gaze, no chance for redemption. One morning, a neighbor saw Samuel sitting silently on the steps, his eyes blankly staring into space. When asked, he only mumbled, "If I could go back, I would never have done it. But it's too late." And indeed it was too late. Samuel sank completely into belated regret, imprisoning himself in inescapable pain. For him, the darkness of the basement had now become a permanent haunting, something that would follow him for the rest of his life. After all the storms, I no longer want to hold on to hatred. I know that if I let the past torment me, I will only become another version of Samuel, living in darkness and bitterness. Therefore, I choose to step into the light. I joined a volunteer group at the church, helping to distribute porridge to the homeless, teaching letters to abandoned children. Each time I saw their smiles, my heart felt warmer. A little girl hugged me and chirped, "Grandma Doris, you're like my grandmother." My eyes welled up, and I whispered, "Yes, from now on, I'll be your grandmother." These small acts became healing medicine. I found peace not in material possessions, but in the grateful eyes, in the innocent smiles of strangers. Time passed, and the wounds in my heart gradually healed. I no longer stayed up all night remembering the dark basement, nor did I dwell on Samuel whenever I thought of him. Instead, I learned to love myself and open my heart to the world. Every morning, I wake up early, make a cup of hot tea, and sit by the window, watching the sunlight filter through the leaves. I smile, feeling truly alive, not existing in fear as I once did. My neighbors often drop by, calling me the brave mother. They say my story has empowered many women in the neighborhood to stand up for themselves against emotional abuse. My heart is filled with purpose. Ethan, the orphaned neighbor boy I often look after, has grown as attached to me as if I were his own grandmother. He chirps, "Grandma Doris, I'll take care of you. I won't let anyone make you sad anymore." That simple sentence, it seems, has soothed all the pain within me. On the church's anniversary, I stood before the congregation and shared my story. I didn't speak with resentment, but with a sense of peace, like sharing a lesson. I once believed that family was blood, but now I understand that true family isn't about blood ties. It's about people who respect and love each other. The entire hall fell silent. Many people shed tears. I no longer felt like a victim, but a testament to the strength of resilience. Finally, I smiled, concluding with a message. If you are suffering injustice within your own home, do not remain silent. Speak up, because justice always exists. You just need the courage to step into the light. The lights shone brightly, and the applause thundered. I knew my painful journey had come to an end, opening the door to a new chapter, a chapter of peace and freedom.